Dokgo Jin thinks a slap is the ultimate display of power. He has no idea that the shaking waitress he just humiliated is the same woman who put his predecessor in a shallow grave 5 years ago. Catherine's hands trembled as she lifted the tray of champagne flutes, not from nerves, but from 18 hours on her feet and a bank account that had hit 0 3 days ago. The penthouse stretched before her like a cathedral of money, marble floors so polished she could see her reflection, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Chicago's glittering skyline, and men in suits that cost more than her rent. Here's the thing about working private events for the mob. You don't ask questions, you don't make eye contact, and you definitely don't spill. She'd broken exactly one of those rules. The champagne cascaded down Dokgo Jin's $1,000 shirt in slow motion, each drop a nail in her coffin. The penthouse went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that happens when 30 men collectively hold their breath, waiting to see if someone's about to die. Catherine looked up. Dokgo Jin stood 6'3" with shoulders that could have belonged to a boxer. His face was all sharp angles, a jawline that could cut glass, a square chin, and cheekbones that cast shadows in the dim light. Black hair swept up and back with the kind of volume that required a professional, faded tight on the sides. Thick eyebrows framed eyes that were currently drilling holes through her skull. A straight nose, broad at the bridge. Pale skin that hadn't seen honest work in years. But it was the tattoos creeping up his neck that made her stomach drop, intricate black ink that disappeared beneath his collar, the mark of someone who'd earned their place in blood. I'm so sorry, sir. The slap came fast, open-handed but with enough force to snap her head to the side. Pain exploded across her cheekbone. The metallic taste of blood filled her mouth, where her teeth had cut the inside of her cheek. The tray clattered to the floor, crystal shattering like tiny explosions. Clumsy rat. His voice was smooth, almost pleasant. That made it worse. He pulled a silver lighter from his pocket, a DuPont, probably vintage, and lit a cigarette with the kind of casual grace that came from never being told no. The click of the lighter echoed in the silence. Somewhere behind her, a bodyguard's hand landed on a table with a heavy thud, rattling glasses. Catherine's vision swam. She kept her head down, shoulders hunched, hands shaking as she dropped to her knees to pick up the broken glass. Every instinct in her body screamed to straighten up, to meet his eyes, to show him what happened to men who put their hands on her. But Catherine Vale was dead. She'd killed her 5 years ago in a warehouse on the south side, along with 14 members of the Costello family. One night, one woman, 0 survivors. The newspapers called it a massacre. The streets called it a ghost story. And when the smoke cleared, Catherine had walked away from it all. The blood, the money, the name that made grown men flinch.
Now she was just a broke waitress with a daughter in college and rent due in 4 days. "Get her out of my sight," Dokgo Jin said, already turning away, dismissing her, a rat beneath his notice. Catherine gathered the larger shards with trembling fingers, played the part, let them see what they expected, a scared woman who'd made a mistake. She didn't see the man moving through the crowd until he was close, too close. Dokgo Jin's brother, Minho, had the same sharp features, but softer around the edges, less discipline, more ambition. She caught the glint of gold from the corner of her eye, a pistol, custom-plated, sliding from beneath his jacket as he raised it toward his brother's back. The room was still watching her, still watching the humiliated waitress crawl on the floor. Nobody was watching Minho. Catherine's hand closed around a shard of glass as she stumbled forward, her shoulder slamming into Minho's hip just as his finger found the trigger. The gun jerked upward. The shot went wide, punching into the ceiling and sending plaster raining down. Chaos erupted. Men shouted, guns appeared from everywhere, and Catherine used the confusion to drive the glass shard into Minho's wrist. He screamed, the gold pistol clattering to the marble floor. She kicked it away in the same motion, still playing scared, still shaking. But Dokgo Jin had turned, and he was staring at her with eyes that had gone from dismissive to calculating in the span of a heartbeat. Because nervous waitresses don't disarm assassins. They don't move like that. They don't strike like that. "Grab her," Dokgo Jin said quietly, and this time there was something new in his voice. Curiosity, interest. Two bodyguards materialized beside her, hands like vices on her arms. Catherine's heart hammered against her ribs as Dokgo Jin crossed the distance between them, smoke from his cigarette curling up toward the vaulted ceiling. He tilted her chin up with one finger, studying her face, the cheek already swelling from his slap, the blood at the corner of her mouth, the eyes that she kept carefully, desperately afraid. "Who are you?" he asked. And Catherine realized with cold, sinking certainty that she wasn't walking out of this penthouse, not as a waitress, not as a free woman, maybe not at all. She'd been in worse situations. That's what she told herself as the bodyguards shoved her into the back of a matte black Escalade, the kind with windows so dark you could disappear a body in broad daylight and nobody would see. The leather seats smelled like money, that specific combination of new car and cologne that probably cost $400 an ounce. Dokgo Jin slid in beside her, and the door closed with the kind of solid thunk that said bulletproof. They didn't speak.
The city blurred past those tinted windows as they drove north, away from the penthouse, away from witnesses, away from any chance someone might notice a waitress who didn't come home. Her phone was gone, confiscated the moment they grabbed her. Her daughter Jasmine was probably already asleep in her dorm room at Northwestern. No idea her mother was currently sitting next to a man who could make her an orphan with a single word. She'd been in worse situations. She kept telling herself that. But here's the thing. 5 years ago, she'd had options, weapons, a reputation that made men think twice before touching her. Now she had $73 in checking, a daughter's tuition bill due in 2 weeks, and a swollen cheek that throbbed with every heartbeat. The SUV turned onto a private drive. Trees swallowed them whole, branches forming a tunnel that blocked out the streetlights. When they emerged, she had to fight to keep her expression neutral. The estate sprawled across what had to be 10 acres of Chicago's most expensive real estate. Not a mansion, an estate. Stone and glass and architectural angles that screamed modern wealth. Exterior lights illuminated gardens so perfect they looked painted. A fountain in the circular drive, because of course there was. 3 more Escalades parked in military precision near a 6-car garage. "Out," Dokgo Jin said. She climbed out on shaking legs, played the part, let her eyes go wide as she stared up at the house, let her breath catch like she'd never seen money before. Truth was, she'd robbed a place twice this size back in her ghost days. They marched her inside, and she meant marched, 1 guard in front, 1 behind, Dokgo Jin beside her like he was escorting a bomb. The interior made the penthouse look modest, marble floors in swirling black and white, a staircase that curved up to the 2nd floor like something out of a movie, art on the walls that she recognized even through her fear, a Basquiat, a Rothko, pieces worth more than most people made in a lifetime. Everything was cold, clean, isolated, like a museum where nothing was meant to be touched. "Sit." Dokgo Jin gestured to a chair in what she guessed was his office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the grounds, a desk made of dark wood and chrome, bookshelves lined with leather-bound volumes that probably cost $1,000 each and had never been read. She sat, kept her hands in her lap, kept them shaking. He circled her slowly, and she could feel his eyes cataloging every detail. The cheap polyester uniform, the scuffed shoes, the way she wouldn't meet his gaze. "Let me explain your situation,"
he said, and his voice had that same pleasant tone from the penthouse, like they were discussing the weather. You witnessed an attempted assassination. You were present when my brother tried to kill me. That makes you a liability. Her throat went dry. I won't tell anyone, I swear. I didn't see anything. Don't lie to me. The pleasantness vanished. He leaned down, hands on the armrests of her chair, caging her in. This close, she could see flecks of amber in his dark eyes, could smell that expensive cologne mixed with cigarette smoke and champagne. You moved like a trained operative. You disarmed an armed man in under 2 seconds. You positioned yourself between the weapon and collateral damage. His head tilted. So let's try this again. Who are you? Here's what she wanted to say. She was the woman who killed his predecessor. She was the ghost who left 14 bodies in a warehouse and walked away clean. She was the reason the Costello family didn't exist anymore. Here's what she said. Nobody. I'm nobody. I used to do self-defense classes, and I panicked, and... A knock on the door cut her off. What? Dokgo Jin snapped, straightening up. One of the bodyguards, the tall one with the scar through his eyebrow, stepped inside. Boss, we've got the brother secured. What do you want us to? He stopped mid-sentence. Because his left hand had drifted to his waistband, fingers brushing the grip of a concealed weapon. A tiny movement, unconscious, the kind of tell that got people killed in her old life. But it wasn't what he touched that made her blood freeze. It was when. He'd reached for his gun the moment Dokgo Jin turned his back. Her eyes flicked to the other guard by the door, saw the same tension in his shoulders, the same predatory readiness. Oh, hell. This wasn't about Min-ho trying to kill his brother. This was a full-scale coup, and these bodyguards were part of it. Dokgo Jin moved toward his desk, completely unaware, reaching for a phone, putting himself between 2 armed traitors with his back exposed. She had maybe 3 seconds to decide. Let him die, walk away in the chaos, disappear back into her civilian life, or save the man who just slapped her and threatened her life. Catherine Vale would have let him die, but she wasn't Catherine Vale anymore. She was a mother with a daughter in college and a conscience that had already kept her up too many nights. Wait! She lurched to her feet, stumbling forward like she was about to faint. Dokgo Jin turned, irritated, and she used the momentum to crash into him, shoved him sideways just as Scarface's gun cleared his holster. The shot was deafening in the enclosed space.
The bullet punched into the bookshelf where Dokgo Jin's head had been a heartbeat before. Leather and paper exploded. She grabbed a crystal paperweight from the desk, had to weigh 3 pounds solid glass, and hurled it at Scarface's face. Felt the satisfying crunch of cartilage breaking. He went down screaming. The second guard raised his weapon. Dokgo Jin moved like liquid violence. He'd pulled his own gun from somewhere, a sleek black pistol that appeared in his hand like magic, and put 2 rounds center mass before the guard could blink. Silence crashed down. Just their breathing, heavy, ragged. Dokgo Jin stared at the bodies, then at her. She was still pressed against his chest from shoving him out of the way, her hands fisted in his shirt, both of them frozen in that moment of adrenaline and survival. Slowly, he holstered his weapon. Slowly, his hand came up to cup her bruised cheek, the same cheek he'd slapped an hour ago. "Who are you?" he asked again. But this time, it wasn't a threat. It was fascination. His eyes had changed. The cold calculation was still there, but underneath it, something else. Something hungry and curious and dangerously interested. He was looking at her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve, like she was valuable. And she realized with sinking dread that she'd just made the worst mistake of her life, because Dokgo Jin wasn't going to let her go. Not now. Not ever. He didn't let go of her face. His thumb brushed across her swollen cheekbone, gentle, almost tender, and the contrast between that touch and the two bodies bleeding out on his marble floor made her head spin. "You're staying here," Dokgo Jin said. Not a question, a fact. I have a daughter. I need to." "Your daughter is safe at Northwestern. Jasmine Vale, 19, sophomore, pre-med track, currently asleep in Anderson Hall, room 347. His eyes never left hers. "I know everything about you, Catherine. Or should I say, ghost." The air left her lungs. He knew. "I don't know what you're—" "Don't." His grip tightened fractionally. "I've spent the last hour having my people pull every record they could find on you. 5 years of living like a mouse, working 3 jobs, keeping your head down. But before that," he smiled, and it was all teeth. "Before that, you were a legend. The woman who wiped out the Castello family in one night. 14 bodies, 0 witnesses. And then you just vanished." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "If you know who I am, then you know what I can do. Let me walk away and we both forget this." "Walk away?" He laughed, sharp and humorless. "You just saved my life. Twice. Once from my brother, once from my own security team. You think I'm stupid enough to let an asset like you disappear back into whatever hole you've been hiding in? I'm not an asset. I'm a mother trying to survive. You're both." He finally released her face, stepping back. "And right now, you're safer in my world than outside it. My brother's coup didn't die with these two." He gestured at the bodies. "There are more, and they'll come for anyone who helped me tonight." The implication hit her like cold water. They'd come for her, for Jasmine. "Here's what's going to happen," Dokgo Jin continued, pulling off his blood-stained jacket and draping it over his desk chair. "You stay here, under my protection. In exchange, you tell me who else is part of the coup." "I don't know who—" "Yes, you do." He loosened his tie, sharp and efficient movements. "You spotted those two in under 30 seconds. That means you know what to look for. You can identify the traitors in my organization." He wasn't wrong. She'd spent 15 years reading body language, spotting tells, identifying threats. Old habits didn't die just because she'd changed her name and started serving coffee. "And if I say no?" Dokgo Jin's smile widened. "Then I'll have a very interesting conversation with the FBI about the Castello massacre. I'm sure they'd love to finally close that case." Checkmate. She wanted to hate him for it, for the trap, for the slap, for the casual way he'd just upended her entire life. But here's the thing. He was right. She was safer inside these walls than outside them.
The room he gave her was on the 3rd floor, overlooking the gardens. King-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than her car. An ensuite bathroom with a tub big enough to drown in. A walk-in closet already stocked with clothes in her exact size. He'd planned this. Even before he knew who she was, he'd planned to keep her. She stood at the window, watching rain begin to fall against the glass. Each drop caught the exterior lights, turning the darkness into a cascade of liquid diamonds. Below, men in suits patrolled the grounds with automatic weapons. Security cameras swept the perimeter in precise arcs. A prison made of marble and money. The door opened without a knock. Dokgo Jin stepped inside, changed into a fresh shirt, black, expensive, tailored to show off those boxers' shoulders. He carried 2 glasses and a bottle of whiskey that was probably older than she was. "You should be resting," she said without turning around. "So should you." The clink of glass on glass as he poured. "But I don't think either of us are the resting type." He crossed to the window, pressed one of the glasses into her hand. Their fingers brushed. She felt the warmth of his skin, the calluses that said he didn't just order violence, he participated in it. They stood there in silence, watching the rain. "Why'd you do it?" he asked finally. "Save me. You could have let them kill me and walked away clean." "I have a daughter who still believes I'm a good person. I'd like to keep it that way." "By saving a monster?" "By not letting men die in front of me when I can prevent it." She took a sip of the whiskey. It burned all the way down, smooth and expensive, and probably worth more than her monthly rent. Even monsters. He laughed, soft and genuine this time. "You're fascinating." "I'm tired." "You're lying." He turned to face her fully, and suddenly the space between them felt too small. She could see the tattoos creeping up his neck more clearly now, Korean characters mixed with geometric patterns, intricate and deliberate. "It's a bad idea," she whispered. "Probably," but he didn't move away. Neither did she. Because here's what she'd learned in her years as the ghost. Sometimes the most dangerous place is exactly where you need to be. Sometimes you survive by walking straight into the monster's den and making yourself indispensable.
And sometimes, God help her, sometimes the monster's touch feels like the first honest thing you've experienced in years. "Get some sleep," Dokgo Jin said, finally stepping back. The loss of his warmth felt like a physical thing. "Tomorrow, we go to war." He walked to the door, paused with his hand on the frame. "Catherine? Yeah? Thank you for saving my life." He glanced back, and something flickered in those dark eyes, something almost human. "I won't forget it." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him. She stood there in the dark, rain streaming down the windows, whiskey burning in her stomach, and the ghost of his touch still warm on her skin. She'd killed men for less than what he'd done to her tonight, but she'd also never felt safer than she did right now, in this marble prison with a mafia boss's protection wrapped around her like armor. The irony wasn't lost on her. She drained the whiskey, set the glass on the windowsill, and finally allowed herself to admit the truth. She wasn't leaving. Not tomorrow, not next week, maybe not ever. Because Dokgo Jin was right about one thing. They were the same, he and she, both trapped by choices they'd made long ago, both wearing masks that had become their faces, both dangerously good at surviving in worlds that should have killed them years ago. Outside, thunder rolled like a warning. She didn't listen. She never did. The meeting started at noon. 12 captains, Dokgo Jin at the head of the table in a conference room that smelled like leather and old money. Catherine standing against the wall like a piece of furniture, watching. They didn't know who she was, just some woman the boss had taken an interest in. She could see it in their eyes, the curiosity, the disdain, the assumption that she was just another pretty thing he'd tire of in a week. Let them think it. She counted the tells in the first 15 minutes. Captain 3, the one with the Rolex that was too new, too shiny. He checked his phone 4 times, waiting for a signal. Captain 7, older, patient, calculating. He kept his hands below the table, armed probably, ready. Captain 9, young, nervous, sweating despite the AC. A follower, not a leader. He'd move when the others did. 3 traitors. Maybe more. Dokgo Jin was explaining the security breach, his voice calm and controlled, professional. But she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers drummed once, just once against the table. He knew something was coming. So did she. Captain 3's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. "Get down!" she started to say. The window exploded inward. Glass and bullets and chaos. The conference room erupted into screaming and blood and bodies hitting the floor. She dropped, rolled under the table as automatic gunfire chewed through walls and furniture. Above her, Dokgo Jin had already drawn his weapon, returning fire with cold precision. The attack came from 3 sides, snipers from the building across the street, ground team breaching the east entrance, and the traitors inside pulling weapons and turning on their own.
She'd been in firefights before, dozens of them, but never armed, never trapped, never with this many variables. Captain 7 raised his gun at Dokgo Jin's back.
She grabbed a fallen chair, swung it into his knees. He went down hard. His gun skittered across the floor. She dove for it, came up shooting, 2 rounds center mass, 1 in the head. Muscle memory. The ghost waking up after 5 years of sleep. "Catherine!" Dokgo Jin's voice sharp with surprise. "Move!" She put covering fire on the window while he repositioned. Bodies everywhere, blood pooling on the marble. Captain 3 was down, half his chest missing. Captain 9 had his hands up, crying, begging. The ground team hit the conference room door with a battering ram. It splintered, caved in. 6 men in tactical gear poured through, and she recognized the insignia on their vests. Choi family. The rival organization that had been circling Dokgo Jin's territory for months. This wasn't just a coup, this was an annexation. "How many rounds?" she shouted at Dokgo Jin. 4. He dropped an empty magazine, slammed in a fresh one. "You?" 6. The gun in her hands felt right, natural, like coming home after a long exile. Here's what civilian Catherine would have done. Hide, pray, hope someone else handled it. Here's what the ghost did. She counted exits, calculated angles, and made a choice. "The kitchen," she said, "service elevator, leads to the garage. How do you—" "I cased this entire estate last night while you thought I was sleeping." She put 2 rounds into a tactical vest, aiming for the neck gap, the soft spots. He dropped. "Move, now!" Dokgo Jin grabbed Captain 9 by the collar, hauled him up as a human shield, and they ran. Bullets chased them down the hallway. Chunks of wall exploded. A painting, probably worth 6 figures, disintegrated into canvas and frame. The kitchen was chaos. His staff was already dead. The chef, the sous, the dishwasher who'd smiled at her that morning, fresh bodies, execution style. They'd planned this down to the minute. "Elevator!" She slammed the call button, once, twice. "Come on, come on!" Footsteps behind them, heavy, fast, close. The elevator dinged. Doors opened. They piled inside. Captain 9 was sobbing, bleeding from a grazing wound. Dokgo Jin hit the garage button, and the doors started to close. A hand caught them, forced them back open. Minho stepped inside, and he looked nothing like the soft, ambitious brother from last night. His eyes were flat, dead, a killer's eyes. He had that gold-plated pistol again, and this time it was pointed directly at his brother's head. "I should have known you'd survive. You always do, like a fucking cockroach." The elevator doors closed behind them, trapped. 4 people in a 6x6 space, descending toward the garage. "This was all you," Dokgo Jin said. His voice had gone quiet, dangerous. "The coup? The Choi family? How long have you been planning it?" 2 years. Minho's smile was ugly. 2 years of playing the loyal brother, while you treated me like an errand boy. Well, no more. The Choi family promised me half your territory. All I had to do was deliver your corpse. He cocked the hammer. She moved, shoved Dokgo Jin aside, brought her gun up, but Minho was faster. His first shot caught her in the left shoulder. Pain exploded, white-hot and blinding. Her gun clattered to the floor. His second shot was aimed at Dokgo Jin's chest. She threw herself between them. The bullet hit her instead, high on the right side, just below the collarbone. She felt the impact like a sledgehammer, felt her body slam back into Dokgo Jin's chest. Heard him roar, something primal and inhuman. The gun in Dokgo Jin's hand spoke 3 times. Minho's head snapped back, forward, back again. He crumpled like a puppet with cut strings. The elevator dinged, garage level. She was on the floor, blood spreading across her shirt in warm, sticky waves. Her vision was graying at the edges. Shock, blood loss, one or both. "Catherine!" Dokgo Jin's hands on her face, her shoulders. "Catherine, look at me. Stay with me." "Pressure," she managed. Her voice sounded far away. "Direct pressure on the wounds. Use his shirt." He tore Minho's expensive button-down into strips, wadded it against her shoulder. She screamed, couldn't help it. The pain was volcanic. I know, I'm sorry. His voice was shaking. When it had started shaking, we're getting you to a hospital. No hospitals. She grabbed his wrist. Choi family owns half the ER staff. They'll finish what Minho started. Then what? Dr. Sarah Chen, Chinatown, off the books. She coughed, tasted copper. Tell her Ghost needs a favor. The elevator doors opened. 6 of Dokgo Jin's men were there, the loyal ones, weapons drawn. They took in the scene, their boss covered in blood, his brother dead, Catherine bleeding out on the elevator floor. Get the cars, Dokgo Jin ordered. Now, we're going to Chinatown. Boss, she's just... She took 2 bullets meant for me. The words came out like a whip crack. He stood, lifting her in his arms like she weighed nothing. She bit back another scream. She's under my protection. Anyone who touches her dies. Anyone who questions me dies. Is that fucking clear? Silence. I said, is that clear? Yes, boss, they chorused. He carried her to the Escalade, placed her in the back seat with a gentleness that didn't match the murder in his eyes. Climbed in beside her, keeping pressure on her wounds while the driver floored it. You're insane, he said, and she couldn't tell if he was angry or awed. You stepped in front of a bullet for me. Seemed like the thing to do. Her laugh turned into a cough, more blood. Besides, you're growing on me. Catherine, like a fungus. He actually smiled. Stay awake, that's an order. Bossy, you have no idea. His hand found hers and squeezed. Dr. Chen, how do you know her? She patched up the ghost after the Costello job, never asked questions, never told anyone. And she'll help you now. She owes me. I let her little brother live when he tried to rob me. The darkness was creeping in at the edges. Dokgo Jin, I'm here. Tell Jasmine I love her. Tell her her mother was trying. Tell her you're going to tell her yourself. His grip tightened. You don't get to die, Catherine. I won't allow it. Not your choice. Everything in my world is my choice. And you're in my world now. That means you live. Understand? She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he couldn't order death away through sheer force of will. But consciousness was slipping through her fingers like water. The last thing she heard was his voice, low and fierce and absolute. She's mine. Tell Dr. Chen the ghost is mine, and I'm calling in every favor I'm owed to keep her breathing. Then darkness, deep and complete.
And somewhere in that darkness, she thought, when did she become his? And worse, why didn't she mind? She woke up 3 days later, not in a hospital, not in some back alley clinic, in Dokgo Jin's estate, in that same 3rd-floor bedroom, with Dr. Chen sitting beside her bed reading a medical journal like she had all the time in the world. "Welcome back," she said without looking up. "You flatlined twice. I told him you were dead. He threatened to burn down my clinic if I didn't keep trying." Catherine tried to sit up. Pain lanced through her shoulder and chest, sharp enough to make her gasp. "Don't," Dr. Chen finally looked at her. She was 50-something, gray streaking her black hair, hands steady as a surgeon's. "You've got titanium pins holding your right clavicle together and enough stitches to make a quilt. You move wrong, you'll tear something I can't fix." "How bad?" "Bad enough that anyone else would be dead." She closed her journal. "But you're not anyone else, are you, ghost?" The name hit different now, like putting on an old coat that didn't quite fit anymore. "That person's gone," Catherine said. "Is she?" Dr. Chen stood, checked her IV. "Because the man downstairs has spent 72 hours dismantling an entire criminal organization to avenge someone he's known for 3 days. That doesn't sound like the reaction to losing a waitress." She left before Catherine could respond.
Catherine lay there, staring at the ceiling, listening to her heartbeat in the monitors. Alive. Against all odds. Still breathing. The door opened. Dokgo Jin stepped inside and she barely recognized him. He looked like he'd aged a decade. Dark circles under his eyes, stubble on his jaw. His shirt was wrinkled, actually wrinkled, like he'd slept in it. But his eyes were clear, focused, burning with something she couldn't name. "You're awake," he said. Disappointed? Relieved. He crossed to the bed, sat on the edge. His weight shifted the mattress, sent a twinge through her injuries. "How do you feel?" "Like I got shot twice." "That's accurate." His hand found hers. When had that become natural? When had she stopped flinching from his touch? "I need to tell you what's happened. The Choi family is no longer a problem." His voice went flat, cold. "I handled it, personally, along with every captain who was part of Min Ho's coup." She searched his face, saw the truth there, saw the blood that wasn't visible but was there all the same. "How many?" 17, including Min Ho. "I made sure the other families watched." He said it like he was discussing the weather. Sent a message. "Anyone who touches what's mine dies screaming." "What's mine?" "Dokgo Jin. There's a meeting tonight," he continued. "All 5 families, the Kims, the Parks, the Lees, the Jungs, and what's left of the Chois. They're coming here to discuss the new arrangement." "What arrangement?" His thumb traced circles on her palm. "The one where they acknowledge my territory has expanded, where they understand that the coup failed and any future attempts will be met with total annihilation, where they see that I'm not weak, not vulnerable, and not alone. You want me there, not a question. I need you there." He met her eyes. "I need them to see who you are, what you mean to me. I need them to understand that hurting you is the same as declaring war on me." "I can barely stand." "Then I'll carry you. No hesitation, no doubt. Catherine, you took 2 bullets from me. You saved my life 3 times in 3 days. The men downstairs, the ones who are still loyal, they're calling you Yoshin, the goddess. They bow when you're mentioned." I laughed. It hurt. "I'm not a goddess. I'm just—" "Don't." His grip tightened. "Don't diminish what you are. I've spent my entire life surrounded by killers and criminals and people who'd sell their own mothers for power. You, though, you're something else entirely. You're dangerous and deadly, and you chose to save me when you could have let me die. Maybe I made the wrong choice. Maybe," he smiled, sharp and predatory. "But you made it, and now you're mine, and I'm yours, and tonight everyone's going to know it." Dr. Chen cleared her to leave the bed at 6 p.m.
By 6:30, she was in the shower, watching pink-tinged water circle the drain. By 7, she was staring at the clothes Dokgo Jin had left for her. Not a waitress uniform, not cheap polyester. A dress, black, floor-length, with a neckline that showed just enough to be dangerous. Silk that whispered against her skin like a secret. Shoes with heels sharp enough to be weapons. And a necklace, diamonds and platinum, arranged in a pattern she recognized from the research she'd done years ago. The symbol of Dokgo Jin's family, his clan. She put it on, looked at herself in the mirror. The ghost stared back. Not the scared waitress, not the broke mother. The woman who'd walked into a warehouse and walked out alone. She'd been sleeping, hibernating. Now she was awake. The conference room had been rebuilt. New windows, bulletproof this time. New furniture, new everything, except the power dynamics. Those were about to shift permanently. The 5 families sat around the table, old men mostly with young enforcers standing behind them. The Kims, the Parks, the Lees, the Jungs, and the Chois, represented by a nephew who looked terrified to be there. They stood when Dokgo Jin entered. They stared when Catherine walked beside him. She was wearing his symbol around her neck, walking without support despite the pain screaming through her shoulder, meeting their eyes one by one, daring them to say something. Nobody did. "Gentlemen," Dokgo Jin said, gesturing for them to sit, "thank you for coming. I believe we have much to discuss." Catherine stood behind his chair, not beside it, that would come later, behind it, where she could see everyone, where she could read the tells and watch for threats. Old habits. "The recent unpleasantness," Chairman Kim began, "was most unfortunate. Your brother's betrayal was enabled by your family's weapons supplier," Catherine said quietly. Every head turned to her. Chairman Kim's face went pale. "I don't know what you—" Captain 3 was wearing a Rolex Submariner reference 126610LV, retail price $42,000. Your nephew gave it to him 3 weeks ago as payment for information. She tilted her head. "The same nephew who's been selling you intel on Dokgo Jin's operations for 6 months." "How could you possibly—" Kim started. "Because I watched Captain 3 check that watch 4 times in 15 minutes before he got the signal to attack. Because I know what a payoff looks like. Because I've been doing this longer than you've been pretending to be legitimate businessmen." Dokgo Jin didn't move, didn't speak, just let her work. "Chairman Park," she continued, turning, "your eldest son has been skimming from the gambling operations, roughly $2 million over the past year. He's planning to run to Seoul next month with a woman who isn't his wife." Park's face went purple. "Chairman Lee, your accountant is FBI. Chairman Chung, your security chief is selling your schedules to TMZ. And Chairman Choi," she looked at the terrified nephew, "you're the only one here who's actually loyal to your family. Congratulations, you're going to live." The room exploded into shouting, denials, accusations, chaos. Dokgo Jin raised one hand. Silence crashed down. "Here's how this is going to work," he said, and his voice could have cut glass. "The woman standing behind me is Catherine Vale. Some of you might know her by another name, the Ghost, the woman who ended the Costello family, the woman who saved my life 3 times and took 2 bullets meant for me." He stood, turned to face her, and took her hand. "She is under my protection. She speaks with my voice. She has access to my resources and my organization. Anyone who disrespects her disrespects me. Anyone who threatens her dies." He kissed her knuckles, never breaking eye contact with the families. "Is that understood?" "You can't seriously expect us to—" Kim started. Catherine pulled a small device from her clutch, pressed a button. A screen descended from the ceiling. Photos appeared. Chairman Kim's nephew handing an envelope to Captain 3, timestamps, bank transfers, phone records. "I expect you to sit down and shut up," she said softly, "because I have this on all of you, every family, every dirty secret, every skeleton, and if anyone here decides that I'm a liability," she smiled, "I'll make the Costello massacre look like a warm-up." Kim sat down. So did the others. "Good," Dokgo Jin said. "Now, let's discuss the new territory arrangements." The meeting lasted 3 hours. By the end of it, Dokgo Jin had doubled his territory, eliminated his rivals, and consolidated power in a way that would take decades to challenge. And Catherine stood behind him the entire time, reading faces, catching lies, feeding him information in whispers that sounded like intimacy to everyone watching. When the families left, they bowed, to him and to her. They stood alone in the empty conference room, just them and the bulletproof windows and the ghost of who she used to be. "That was," Dokgo Jin started. "Terrifying? Insane? Brilliant?
hot. He pulled her against him, careful of her injuries. Watching you dismantle 5 families without raising your voice, that was the most attractive thing I've ever seen. She laughed, actually laughed. You're insane. Probably. His forehead rested against hers. But I'm yours, and you're mine, and together, he smiled, we're going to burn this city down and rebuild it in our image. I have a daughter in college, a normal life. I can't just... Your daughter's tuition is paid for the next 3 years. I handled it this morning. He kissed her forehead. Your normal life is over, Catherine. You stepped into my world. You saved my life. You took my symbol. His finger traced the diamond necklace. You're not the ghost anymore. You're not a waitress. You're the queen of Chicago's underworld. My queen. Act like it. And here's the thing. He was right. She'd spent 5 years pretending to be small, invisible, safe. But safe was boring. Safe didn't look at her like she was worth dying for. She reached up, pulled him down, and kissed him, deep, claiming, mine. When they broke apart, his eyes were dark with promise. So, he asked, are you staying? She looked at the conference room, the city beyond the windows, the empire he'd built, and the throne he was offering. She thought about her daughter, about the life she'd left behind, about the woman she used to be, and the woman she was becoming. Then she smiled. Try to make me leave, she said, and became the ghost one last time, this time as the most dangerous woman in Chicago. His woman, his queen, his equal. Game over. She'd won. 3 months later, Catherine watched her daughter graduate summa cum laude from Northwestern.
From the VIP box, the one reserved for major donors and university trustees, the one that came with champagne service and a security detail that could stop a small army, Jasmine crossed the stage in her cap and gown, accepting her diploma with a smile that could light up the whole auditorium. She had no idea her mother was there. Catherine had told her she was working, couldn't get away, same excuse she'd used her whole life. But this time, she was lying. This time, she was watching from the shadows with a man's hand on her lower back and a diamond necklace worth more than their old apartment building around her neck. She looks like you, Dokgo Jin said quietly. She's better than me. Catherine couldn't take her eyes off her. Smarter, kinder, everything I wasn't at her age. You were surviving. I was killing people. Same thing in our world. His thumb traced circles on her spine through the silk of her dress, custom-made, Italian, fitted perfectly despite the scars underneath. Are you going to tell her? About you? About us? About what I really do now? She shook her head. Let her keep believing her mother serves coffee and works night shifts. It's safer that way. Safer. The word tasted like ash, but it was true. The less Jasmine knew about Catherine Vale, the ghost, the queen, the woman who now controlled half of Chicago's underworld alongside the most dangerous man in the city, the better. They left before the ceremony ended, slipped out through private exits where cameras couldn't follow, into the matte black Escalade with bulletproof windows and a driver who'd killed 3 men last week to protect her. Her life, now. Where to? Dokgo Jin asked, settling beside her in the back seat. The penthouse. I have a meeting with the Lee family at 8. He smiled. They're terrified of you, you know. Good. Fear is more reliable than loyalty. Is that what I should be? Afraid? She looked at him. Really looked. 3 months and he'd become as familiar as her own reflection. The sharp jawline, the tattoos creeping up his neck, the eyes that could go from tender to terrifying in a heartbeat. They'd built something together in those 3 months. Not a romance, nothing that simple. A partnership, an empire, a machine of violence and power that ran on mutual respect and shared ambition. Also, the sex was incredible, but that was beside the point. You're many things to me, she said, but afraid isn't one of them. What am I then?
She leaned in close, whispered against his lips, "Mine." He kissed her like he was claiming territory, possessive, demanding, perfect. When they broke apart, his phone was buzzing. He checked it, frowned. "Problem?" she asked. "The Jung family wants a sit-down. They're unhappy with the new distribution agreements. Let me guess. They think because I'm a woman, I'll negotiate. Probably."
She pulled out her own phone, sent a text to her second-in-command, a former Marine sniper who'd joined her crew after she'd saved her sister from a trafficking ring. 3 seconds later, she responded with a photo. Chairman Jung's son walking into a hotel with a woman who definitely wasn't his wife. "Send that to Chairman Jung," she told Dokgo Jin. "Tell him we'll renegotiate when he learns some respect. And if he pushes back," she smiled, "remind him what happened to the last family that underestimated me." He laughed, dark and delighted. "You're terrifying. You love it." "I really do." The penthouse had changed since that first night, since the slap, since the champagne and the bodyguards, and the moment that had transformed her entire life. Now it was hers too, their command center, war room and sanctuary combined. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, screens displaying real-time feeds from their operations, a conference table where they'd planned the takedown of 3 rival families, a bedroom where they'd celebrated each victory. She stood at those windows now, watching Chicago glitter below like diamonds on black velvet. Her city, their city. Dokgo Jin joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind, careful, always careful, of the scars on her shoulder. They'd healed well. Dr. Chen was a miracle worker, but they were still there, permanent reminders of the night she'd stopped being a waitress and started being something else entirely. "Do you miss it? Your old life?" "Which part? The 3 jobs? The overdraft fees? The constant terror that I couldn't make rent?" "The normal part, the safe part." She thought about it, really thought. "No," she said finally. "I was dying in that life, slowly, quietly, working myself to death for scraps while pretending I was fine." She turned in his arms. "Here, I'm alive, I'm powerful, I'm finally using everything I am instead of hiding it." "And your daughter?" "Will never know the truth. She'll finish medical school on a full scholarship from an anonymous donor. She'll save lives, be happy, live clean." She touched his face. "That's my gift to her, a life I could never have." "You could still have it, if you want it. I could set you up somewhere safe, new identity, clean slate." She laughed. "You trying to get rid of me?" "Never. But I need you to know you have a choice, always." "I know." She kissed him, soft this time, honest. "And I choose this. I choose you. I choose the empire we're building." His smile was pure satisfaction. "Then let's go to war." The meeting with the Lee family went exactly as expected. They tried to intimidate her. She showed them surveillance footage of their operations. They threatened violence. She reminded them about the choice. They attempted to negotiate. She gave them new terms that benefited them and left them with enough to stay loyal. By the end of it, Chairman Lee was bowing, calling her ma'am, promising his family's complete cooperation. She accepted with grace, warned him what would happen if he broke his word, left him terrified and compliant. Standard Tuesday. That night, she stood in front of the mirror in their bedroom, removing the diamond necklace, the symbol of Dokgo Jin's family, her family now. He watched from the bed, all dangerous elegance and lethal grace. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About the woman I used to be, the one who walked into your penthouse wearing a polyester uniform and terror." She set the necklace down carefully. "About how you slapped her, called her a rat, had no idea who she really was." "Biggest mistake of my life," he said, "right before it became the best thing that ever happened to me." She climbed onto the bed,
straddled him, let him see everything she was. The scars, the power, the monster wearing a woman's skin. "I was nobody when we met," she said. "A ghost, a memory, a killer pretending to be small. And now?" She smiled, leaned down until their lips were almost touching, and whispered the truth. "Now I'm the woman who owns this city, the queen beside the king, the nightmare that keeps your enemies awake at night." She kissed him once, claiming, "I was the ghost who vanished into obscurity. Now I'm the legend they'll tell their children about, the one who came back from the dead and conquered everything she touched." His hands tightened on her hips. "Say it again. I'm yours. You're mine. And together," she smiled against his mouth, "we're the most dangerous thing Chicago has ever seen." Viral victory lap. 3 months ago, Dokgo Jin slapped a nervous waitress and called her a clumsy rat. He had no idea she was the ghost, the assassin who'd wiped out an entire mafia family in one night. Now she wears his diamonds, sits at his right hand, commands his empire with a whisper and a smile that promises violence. The families bow when she enters a room. Her enemies die before they can speak her name. Her daughter lives safe and clean and free, never knowing her mother is the most feared woman in Chicago's underworld. She was the waitress who spilled champagne and got slapped for her trouble. Now she's the queen who built an empire on broken men and shattered families, and the entire city knows. You can insult her, threaten her, even try to kill her, but you'll never, ever survive it.